The situation was escalating, and fast. Keanu hesitated, torn between the primal desire to help and his responsibility to keep Buddy safe. Just as he was considering his next move, a group of other bikers, the friendly ones he noted, emerged from the bar. They quickly and silently positioned themselves around the waitress, forming a protective, human barrier between her and the troublemakers. "You heard the lady," one of them said, his voice low and dangerous. "Time for you to leave." Recognizing the potential for real violence and mindful of his promise to the dog keeper, Keanu decided it was time to make a strategic retreat. He quietly led Buddy away from the scene, not wanting to draw any unnecessary attention to themselves. As they walked, Keanu couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and unease. The confrontation at the bar had revealed a dark, simmering undercurrent of tension in the neighborhood, one that he hoped wouldn't spill over and impact the rest of their outing. After walking several blocks away from the tense scene at Iron and Ash, Keanu and Buddy found themselves in a much more tranquil part of the neighborhood. The streets here were wider, lined with leafy trees that provided a welcome canopy of shade from the relentless sun. As they rounded a corner, a quaint cafe came into view, its outdoor seating area looking like a peaceful haven in the bustling city. The cafe's patio was spacious and inviting. Wrought iron tables and chairs were scattered beneath a charming canopy of string lights that crisscrossed overhead. Even in the bright daylight, the lights added a touch of whimsical magic to the scene. A chalkboard sign near the entrance proclaimed the day's specials in colorful, artistic lettering. Keanu paused, considering their options. The shaded patio seemed like the absolute perfect spot to rest and grab a bite to eat while keeping Buddy comfortable and out of the heat. Decision made, he approached one of the tables. With practiced ease, he carefully removed Buddy's leash and settled into one of the chairs, then pulled an extra seat alongside his own. He patted the seat, a clear invitation. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "You've earned a rest." Buddy, it seemed, didn't need to be told twice. With a surprising grace for his solid, muscular size, the pit bull jumped up onto the chair, settling himself comfortably. His remarkably well-behaved demeanor drew a few admiring glances from nearby patrons, who smiled at the sight of the furry friend making himself at home. As Keanu was getting comfortable, a waitress approached their table. Her name tag identified her as Maggie, and she carried herself with the easy confidence of someone who genuinely enjoyed their job. "Good afternoon," she greeted them warmly, her professional demeanor instantly softening as she noticed Buddy. "Oh, aren't you a handsome fellow?" she added, addressing the dog directly. Keanu smiled, appreciating her friendly attitude. "He certainly is," he agreed. "I hope it's all right that he's up here with me." Maggie waved off his concern with a flick of her wrist. "As long as he's well behaved, we're happy to have him. Now, what can I get for you today?" Keanu considered for a moment. "I'll have a coffee and a steak sandwich, please. And could I get an additional, unsalted steak portion for my friend here?" He gestured towards Buddy, who immediately perked up at the mention of the word steak. Maggie grinned, jotting down the order efficiently. "Of course. One coffee, one steak sandwich, and a special order for the distinguished gentleman," she said with a playful wink towards Buddy. "I'll have that right out for you." As Maggie headed back inside to place their order, Keanu settled in to wait. He pulled his script from an inner pocket of his jacket, spreading it out on the table. While Buddy lounged contentedly beside him, Keanu alternated between reviewing his lines and just soaking in the peaceful atmosphere. Every so often, he'd reach over to give Buddy a gentle pat, easily dividing his attention between his work and his new canine companion. "Just a little longer, Buddy," he murmured, rubbing the dog's head affectionately. "Food's coming soon." True to her word, Maggie returned a few minutes later with their drinks. "Here's your coffee," she said, placing the cup in front of Keanu. The kitchen is just finishing up your steak and your friend's special order. It'll be out in just a moment, Keanu thanked her. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee roused him from his midday haze, making his stomach growl in anticipation. Just as he was about to take a well-deserved sip, a nearby commotion shattered the peaceful atmosphere. And then it happened. A burly man in a biker vest was passing their table, his face twisted in a nasty sneer. "Filthy animals," he muttered, just loud enough for Keanu to hear. "Sitting at the table like they're people." Before Keanu could even process the words, the man's boot lashed out, catching Buddy squarely in the side. The dog let out a sharp, pained whimper that quickly turned into a defensive, ferocious barking, drawing the immediate attention of everyone on the patio. In a single, shocking instant, the peaceful scene had transformed into one of conflict, with Buddy's distressed bark serving as a stark, jarring alarm. Keanu's muscles tensed, his relaxed demeanor evaporating as he prepared to confront this sudden, unexpected threat. Keanu's reaction was instantaneous. He sprang to his feet, his chair scraping loudly, violently against the patio floor. His entire body was taut with a cold, focused anger, his eyes blazing as he confronted the biker. The sudden movement sent a ripple of shock through the patio, creating a palpable tension in the air. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Keanu demanded, his voice low and dangerous. He instinctively positioned himself between Buddy and the aggressor, a human shield fueled by protective instinct. The biker, momentarily taken aback by Keanu's swift and furious response, took a half-step back from the growling dog but quickly regained his aggressive stance. He spat on the ground, his face contorted with disgust. "Control your beast," he snarled. "How dare it show its teeth to a man?" Keanu's hand found its way to Buddy's back, his touch gentle but firm, helping to calm the agitated dog. The contrast between Keanu's soothing presence and the biker's raw hostility was stark and undeniable. "Buddy only reacts to threats," Keanu said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "You're the one who provoked him. He's never hurt anyone unless they hurt him first." The biker's face twisted into a mocking sneer. "Coward dog, coward owner," he taunted, his words dripping with contempt. For a brief, terrifying moment, Keanu's famous composure slipped. His hand shot out, grabbing the front of the biker's vest. The crowd around them gasped, the tension ratcheting up another notch. But just as quickly as it had happened, Keanu caught himself. He was acutely aware of the watching crowd, of Maggie's worried face as she approached with their food. With a visible effort, Keanu released his grip on the vest, taking a deep, centering breath. The biker, sensing Keanu's restraint, seized the moment to make his threat. "You'll pay for this," he growled, dusting off the spot where Keanu had grabbed him. "Both of you." With a final, parting sneer, he turned and walked away, his heavy boots thudding against the patio floor. As the biker retreated, Keanu's trained actor's eye couldn't help but notice a key detail about his appearance. The vest the man wore bore a distinctive insignia, a snarling tiger with extended, vicious claws. It was the exact same design he had seen on the troublemakers outside Iron and Ash earlier that day. The connection sent a chill down his spine, but he pushed the thought aside for the moment. He turned his attention back to Buddy, checking the dog over for any signs of injury. Finding none, he let out a quiet sigh of relief. The smell of the freshly grilled steak pulled him back to reality, reminding him of why they had stopped in the first place. Maggie approached cautiously, concern etched on her face. "I'm so sorry about that," she said, setting down their plates. "Are you both all right?" Keanu nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. "We're fine. I'm sorry for the commotion." Maggie shook her head, her expression grim. "Don't you dare apologize. Those bikers have been harassing our customers for weeks now. In this neighborhood, This is the first time one has gone after an animal, though. She glanced around nervously, before adding in a lower voice. The owner's been trying to get more security, but it's not easy. As Maggie excused herself, Keanu settled back into his chair. The incident had left him shaken, more than he cared to admit. He looked down at his sandwich, suddenly aware of just how hungry he was. Perhaps that's why he had reacted so impulsively to the biker's provocation. Buddy, too, seemed to have recovered from the shock. His nose twitched at the tantalizing scent of the steak, a string of drool forming at the corner of his mouth. Keanu couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. "All right, buddy," he said, reaching for the dog's plate. "Let's enjoy our meal. We've earned it after that excitement." As they ate, Keanu found his thoughts drifting back to the biker and his ominous threat. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that somehow their paths would cross again before the day was done. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the simple, grounding pleasure of sharing a meal with his new four-legged friend. As Keanu finished the last satisfying bite of his steak sandwich, he glanced at his watch and felt a jolt of surprise. Their lunch break was nearly over. Time had somehow slipped away, faster than he'd anticipated, and they needed to head back to the set soon. "Looks like we need to get going, buddy," Keanu said, giving the dog an affectionate pat on his very full belly. "But first, I need to use the restroom. Mind waiting for me?" Buddy tilted his head, as if genuinely considering the question, then settled back into his chair with a contented, sleepy sigh. Keanu couldn't help but smile at the dog's seemingly human-like response. Standing up, he carefully and securely tied Buddy's leash to the heavy iron table leg. He caught Maggie's eye as she passed by with a tray of drinks for another table. "Would you mind keeping an eye on him for just a moment?" he asked. "I'll just be a few minutes." Maggie nodded, her smile warm and reassuring. "Of course, no problem at all." With that, Keanu made his way inside the cafe, weaving through the tables to the back where a small, discreet sign indicated the restrooms. To his dismay, he found a short line of people waiting. He considered going back outside, waiting until the line cleared, but the pressure in his bladder convinced him otherwise. He'd just have to be as quick as humanly possible. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling slower than the last as Keanu waited his turn, his foot tapping impatiently against the tiled floor. He couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease, a sense that he shouldn't have left Buddy alone, even for a moment. But that was ridiculous, wasn't it? The dog was perfectly safe right there on the patio, in Maggie's capable care. It was a nice cafe in a good neighborhood. What could possibly happen? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably no more than 10 minutes, Keanu emerged from the restroom. He hurried back outside, eager to collect Buddy and head back to the controlled chaos of the film set. As he stepped back onto the patio, his heart sank. Buddy was alone at the table, and Maggie was nowhere in sight. But that wasn't what sent a bolt of pure, icy fear down Keanu's spine. It was the sight of Buddy, clearly in distress, struggling desperately to breathe. Keanu rushed to the dog's side, his mind racing, trying to process what he was seeing. Buddy was choking. His body was heaving with violent, unproductive coughs as he tried with all his might to expel something from his throat. Panic threatened to overwhelm Keanu, but he forced it down, forcing himself to stay calm. "Water!" he called out, his voice tight with urgency. "I need water, quickly!" A different waitress, not Maggie, but a younger girl with a name tag that read Lila, responded promptly, bringing over a bottle of water. With careful precision, Keanu administered the water, holding Buddy's jaw up to help whatever was stuck pass through. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with one final violent heave, Buddy managed to swallow. The immediate crisis had passed, but the dog still looked terribly distressed, his eyes unfocused and his tail drooping limply. It was at this exact moment that Maggie returned, her face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she said, breathless. "The kitchen needed me urgently, but I asked Lila to watch him." Lila, looking nervous and out of her depth, stepped forward. "There was a man here," she said, her voice hesitant. "He seemed friendly. He fed the dog a sausage. I thought it was okay." As Lila described the man, bearded, chubby-cheeked, with a mohawk, wearing leather gloves and a vest with a distinctive tiger claw insignia, Keanu felt his blood run cold. The pieces of the puzzle slammed into place with a horrifying clarity. The realization hit him like a physical punch to the gut. This wasn't an accident. This was a deliberate, malicious act. This was the payback the biker had promised. "Is there a vet nearby?" Keanu asked urgently, his eyes darting between Maggie and Lila, already fearing that it wasn't just a sausage, that something else, something sinister was inside it. They exchanged a quick, panicked glance before Maggie nodded. "There's one about 3 blocks from here," she said, pointing down the street. "Take a left at the next intersection, you can't miss it." Keanu nodded, his mind already racing ahead. He left a generous tip on the table, along with enough money to cover the bottled water, and prepared to leave. But, as he stood up, Buddy suddenly collapsed, his legs giving out completely from beneath him. The dog's condition was deteriorating, and fast. His tail hung limp, his eyes were becoming unfocused and glassy, and distressed. Painful whimpers escaped his throat. Keanu knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that they didn't have a moment to lose. Without a second of hesitation, Keanu scooped Buddy up into his arms. The dog's substantial, muscular weight made the task incredibly challenging, but a surge of pure adrenaline lent Keanu a strength he didn't know he possessed. With a final, grateful nod to the shocked waitresses, Keanu set off at a dead run towards the veterinary clinic, praying with every fiber of his being that they wouldn't be too late. Keanu's heart hammered against his ribs as he raced through the streets of Brooklyn Heights, Buddy's substantial weight a dead, heavy burden in his arms. The urgency of the situation was evident in his rapid, pounding pace, and the fierce, focused determination etched on his face. Passers-by turned to stare at the bizarre, alarming sight of a man sprinting while carrying a large, limp pit bull. But Keanu paid them no mind. His entire world had narrowed down to the precious, fragile cargo in his arms and the desperate, all-consuming need to reach the veterinary clinic. The 3 blocks to the clinic felt like 3 agonizing miles. Sweat beaded on Keanu's forehead, a mixture of pure physical exertion and cold, terrifying fear. Buddy's condition seemed to worsen with each passing, gut-wrenching moment. His whimpers grew weaker, his body becoming increasingly limp and unresponsive. Finally, the clinic came into view, its clean white facade and simple blue cross sign looking like a beacon of hope in a sea of despair. Keanu burst through the doors, his voice hoarse and raw as he called out, "Please, I need help! My dog's been poisoned!" The reception area, which had been calm and quiet just a moment before, erupted into a flurry of controlled professional action. A woman in scrubs, her name tag identifying her as Dr. Harper, quickly took charge of the chaotic situation. "Bring him this way," she directed, leading Keanu to an examination room. "Put him on the table." Keanu gently, carefully laid Buddy on the cold, sterile metal surface, his hands lingering for a moment on the dog's soft fur. Dr. Harper immediately began her examination, her movements quick, efficient, and precise. "Can you tell me what happened?" she asked, her eyes never leaving Buddy as she checked his vital signs. Keanu recounted the events at the cafe as best he could, his words tumbling out in a rushed, frantic torrent. "Someone fed him something. A sausage, I think. But it must have been laced with something. He started choking and then he just He just collapsed. Dr. Harper nodded, her face grave. His pupils are dilated, and his symptoms are consistent with poisoning. Likely drug-related, given how quickly it's affecting him. She turned to a nearby nurse. We need to run blood tests immediately to identify the substance and administer the correct antidote. As the nurse hurried to carry out the order, Dr. Harper outlined her immediate treatment plan. We're going to start by giving him activated charcoal to neutralize the poison, she explained, her voice calm and reassuring. We'll also put him on IV fluids to flush the toxins and help stabilize his condition while we wait for the test results. Keanu nodded, trying desperately to process the information through the thick fog of his worry. Do whatever you need to do, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Just, please, save him. As the medical team worked on Buddy, Keanu found himself ushered back to the waiting room. The stark, brutal reality of the situation began to sink in, and with it came the sudden, practical realization that he needed to inform the film crew about what had happened. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone and dialed the director's number. The conversation was brief, but weighty. Keanu explained the situation, his voice catching as he relayed the seriousness of Buddy's condition. The director's initial frustration at the unexpected disruption to their tight shooting schedule quickly gave way to genuine concern. Don't worry about the shoot, the director assured him. We'll reschedule. Just take care of Buddy. And Keanu, make sure you document everything. We might need it for insurance or legal reasons. After ending the call, Keanu arranged for the dog keeper to come to the clinic. He knew they would need to properly document the entire incident, both for the production company and in case they decided to pursue legal action against Buddy's attacker. As he settled in for what promised to be a long, anxious wait, Keanu couldn't help but reflect on how quickly and completely this day had spiraled out of control. What had started as a simple, pleasant walk had turned into a terrifying, life-or-death situation. And somewhere out there, the man responsible for all this was still free. Keanu's jaw clenched at the thought. He had always prided himself on being a peaceful person, on choosing diplomacy and understanding over confrontation and anger. But in this moment, as he waited to hear if Buddy would survive, he found himself wrestling with a raw, visceral desire for justice, or was it vengeance, that he had rarely experienced before. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity as Keanu waited for news. The sterile smell of the clinic, the muted sounds of other animals, and the quiet, focused efficiency of the staff all blended into a surreal, dreamlike backdrop to his worried thoughts. All he could do now was wait, and hope, and pray that they had reached help in time. The waiting room clock ticked relentlessly, each second feeling like an eternity to Keanu, as he anxiously awaited news of Buddy's condition. The sterile, impersonal environment of the veterinary clinic, with its sharp, antiseptic smell and muted, calming colors, did little to soothe his frayed nerves. Other pet owners came and went, their own worries etched deeply on their faces, but Keanu barely noticed them. His mind was completely consumed with thoughts of Buddy and the malicious, cowardly act that had brought them to this place. At precisely 1:42 p.m., after what had felt like hours, but had in reality only been about 30 minutes, Dr. Harper emerged from the treatment area. Her face was serious, but not grim, which Keanu took as a hopeful sign. She approached him, clipboard in hand, her demeanor professional, yet compassionate. Mr. Reeves, she began, taking a seat next to him. I have the blood test results. Keanu leaned forward, his heart racing. How is he? Is Buddy going to be okay? Dr. Harper nodded slowly. Buddy is stable for now, but he's not out of the woods yet. The blood tests revealed a concerning combination of substances in his system. She paused, her brow furrowing slightly. "We found traces of a powerful narcotic mixed with chemicals similar to those found in rat poison. It's a combination that could have been lethal without quick intervention." Keanu felt his blood run cold at her words. The deliberate, calculated nature of the attack became even clearer. This wasn't just a cruel prank. It was a cold-blooded, calculated attempt to seriously harm, or even kill, Buddy. "The good news," Dr. Harper continued, "is that we caught it early. The activated charcoal we administered has helped to neutralize much of the poison, and the IV fluids are working to flush his system. We've also started him on specific antidotes for the identified toxins." As Dr. Harper explained the intricate details of Buddy's treatment plan, Keanu found his mind drifting back to the biker who had threatened them. The pieces were all falling into place. The initial confrontation at the cafe, the man who had fed Buddy the poisoned sausage, and now this attempted murder. It was all connected, and the chilling realization filled Keanu with a potent, dangerous mixture of cold anger and steely determination. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the film's dog keeper. The man looked worried and slightly out of breath, as if he had rushed over the second he got the call. "Mr. Reeves," he said, approaching them. "I came as soon as I heard. How's Buddy doing?" Keanu stood, briefly filling the dog keeper in on Buddy's condition and the horrifying events that had led them here. As he spoke, he felt a subtle but significant shift within himself. He had brought Buddy into the situation, however unintentionally, and now he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility for seeing it through to the end. "I need to go settle something," Keanu said, his voice low and determined. "Can you stay here and watch over Buddy?" The dog keeper nodded, though he looked utterly confused. "Of course, but where are you going?" Keanu's expression hardened. "There's someone I need to find. The person responsible for this." He turned to Dr. Harper. "Doctor, I'm covering all of Buddy's medical expenses. Please do everything you can for him." Dr. Harper assured him they would provide the best possible care. As Keanu prepared to leave, he methodically returned the leash, water container, and waste bags to the dog keeper. The simple act felt strangely symbolic, a transfer of responsibility. "I'll be back," Keanu promised, his voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. "Take care of him." And with a final, lingering glance at the door leading to where Buddy was being treated, Keanu strode out of the clinic. His walk was purposeful, his expression set with a quiet, unshakable determination. He knew exactly where he needed to go, back to Iron and Ash, where this whole nightmarish ordeal had begun. As he made his way through the streets of Brooklyn Heights, Keanu's mind was clear and focused. This wasn't about revenge, he told himself. It was about justice. It was about ensuring that whoever had done this to Buddy couldn't harm anyone, or any other animal, ever again. And yet, a small, dark part of him couldn't deny the anger simmering just beneath the surface, the raw, primal desire to confront the person who had so callously, so cruelly threatened an innocent animal. The sun was beginning its slow descent in the sky as Keanu approached Iron and Ash. The bar loomed before him, its weathered, imposing exterior a stark contrast to the trendy, modern establishments that surrounded it. Keanu paused for a moment, taking a deep, centering breath. He knew that what he was about to do could be dangerous, but the image of Buddy, fighting for his life in the veterinary clinic, steeled his resolve. As Keanu approached Iron and Ash, the full gravity of the situation began to sink in. The bar stood before him, its weathered exterior a silent, imposing testament to years of rough, hard-edged patronage. The deep, guttural rumble of motorcycles filled the air, a constant, menacing backdrop to the palpable tension that seemed to radiate from the very walls of the building. Keanu paused across the street, taking a moment to gather his thoughts and carefully consider his options. His initial, hot-headed plan to directly confront the biker responsible for Buddy's condition now seemed foolhardy, even reckless. He was one man, about to walk into a den of potentially hostile, violent bikers. And not just any man, but a recognizable, world-famous celebrity. The weight of his public persona, usually just an afterthought in his daily, low-key life, now loomed large and heavy in his strategic thinking. As he stood there, weighing his options, Keanu observed a group of bikers gathered outside the bar. He instantly recognized them as the troublemakers from earlier that day. Their aggressive, intimidating postures and loud, obnoxious voices carried easily across the street. The female waitress, who had so bravely stood her ground earlier, was nowhere to be seen. In her place was a visibly intimidated male employee who seemed to cower as the bikers swaggered and forced their way inside. The scene before him painted a clear, disturbing picture of the dynamic at play. This wasn't just about one isolated incident with a dog. It was a clear, established pattern of intimidation and control that was affecting the entire neighborhood. Keanu's highly honed actor instincts kicked in, urging him to gather more information before taking any kind of direct action. He waited until the last of the bikers had swaggered into the bar before approaching the frightened employee, who was now nervously, aimlessly sweeping the entrance. "Rough crowd," Keanu commented casually, nodding towards the door. The employee looked up, his eyes widening slightly in recognition before darting nervously back to the door. "You have no idea," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "The woman who was supposed to be standing here. She was taken to a hospital." Keanu was surprised and horrified at the news. It had to be the same young woman who had so warmly greeted Buddy earlier. He leaned in, keeping his voice low. "How long has this been going on?" The employee sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Months now. It's getting worse. Last month, they broke my nose and 2 of my fingers when I tried to cut one of them off." He flexed his hand unconsciously, wincing at the memory. "I've been thinking about quitting. Nessa, the waitress too, but—" "But what?" Keanu prompted gently. "I handed in my resignation letter," the man admitted, his voice full of shame. "But the boss asked me to stay until they find a replacement. Said he needs all hands on deck to deal with this." He gestured vaguely towards the bar. Keanu frowned, his sense of injustice growing with every word. "That's not right. You shouldn't have to put yourself in danger like this." The employee shrugged helplessly. "The boss knows my address. I'm scared of what might happen if I just walk away." As they talked, Keanu's eyes were drawn to the darkened, grimy windows of the bar. Through the glass, he could just make out the start of another altercation. The bikers were initiating conflicts with other patrons, their aggressive, predatory behavior a stark contrast to the cowering, terrified bar staff. The scene confirmed what Keanu had already begun to suspect. A direct confrontation would be unwise, and possibly even dangerous, not just for him, but for the innocent employees and other patrons caught in the crossfire. A new plan began to form in Keanu's mind. He had connections, people who could handle this kind of situation officially and safely. One name in particular stood out: Sheriff Hank Morrison, a personal friend who had the authority and the experience to deal with situations exactly like this. Keanu turned back to the employee, his decision made. "Listen," he said, his voice firm and reassuring. "I think I know someone who can help." The employee nodded, a tiny glimmer of hope appearing in his tired, frightened eyes. Who are you going to call?" Keanu gave him a reassuring smile. "Someone who can put an end to this, legally and safely. Just keep your head down and stay safe. Help is on the way." With that, Keanu stepped away from the bar, pulling out his phone. He dialed Sheriff Hank Morrison's number, his fingers moving with a newfound purpose. As the phone rang, Keanu's mind raced, quickly organizing the information he needed to convey. "Hank," Keanu said when the call connected, his voice low and urgent. "It's Keanu. I need your help with a situation in Brooklyn Heights." Keanu's conversation with Sheriff Hank Morrison was brief but intense. He officially, and concisely, outlined the day's horrifying events, his voice tight with a carefully controlled urgency as he described the attack on Buddy and the likely presence of illegal substances. "The bikers who poisoned the dog are at a bar called Iron and Ash," Keanu explained, his eyes never leaving the bar's entrance. "They most likely have more substances with them, since they drugged the dog. I'm at the location now." Sheriff Morrison's voice came through the phone, calm but serious. "I understand, Keanu. Don't do anything rash. Stay put and do not engage. We'll be there soon." Keanu agreed, ending the call with a profound sense of relief. He trusted Hank to handle the situation professionally and, more importantly, effectively. Now, all he had to do was wait. As he put his phone away, Keanu noticed the bar employee watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. The man approached hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. Did you call the police?" Keanu nodded, but before he could respond further, the employee's face contorted with panic. "No, you can't," he hissed. It's not good with the police here. The boss will—" Keanu cut him off, gently but firmly. "Think about what you're saying. What's left to protect here? A business that can't even ensure basic security for its staff? That allows criminals to threaten the community?" The employee fell silent, unable to answer. Keanu continued, his voice softening. "There should be real security guards posted outside that door, instead of waitresses or employees like yourself being put in harm's way. This isn't right, and you know it." The man nodded slowly, the undeniable truth of Keanu's words sinking in. "You're right," he admitted quietly. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant, rising wail of sirens. Within minutes, multiple police cars arrived on the scene, their silent, tactical approach suggesting a high level of awareness and preparedness. Officers poured out of the vehicles, their movements coordinated and purposeful. Keanu watched as the police efficiently and silently entered the bar. The element of surprise worked perfectly in their favor. Before the bikers could even react, the officers had secured the premises. Through the windows, Keanu could see the chaos inside as tables were overturned and patrons were corralled. The search of the premises was thorough and methodical. Keanu overheard snippets of conversation between officers as they emerged from the bar, discussing the significant cache of illegal substances they had discovered. It wasn't just personal possessions. A large supply found in the storage area suggested an organized distribution operation. As the arrests began, Keanu felt a complex mix of emotions wash over him. Relief that justice was finally being served, satisfaction that the threat to the community was being neutralized, and a lingering, simmering anger at what had been done to Buddy. The arrest sequence unfolded with a cool, professional efficiency. Each suspect was properly secured, their rights read as they were led to the waiting police vehicles. The flashing lights of the police cars cast an eerie, surreal glow over the scene, drawing the attention of a growing crowd of onlookers. Keanu, suddenly aware of the crowd and the potential for recognition, slipped on his sunglasses. He had done what he came to do. Now it was time to step back and let the law take its course. As he watched the last of the bikers being led away, Keanu's thoughts turned back to Buddy. With the immediate threat now neutralized, he could finally focus on what really mattered, ensuring the dog's recovery and safe return to the film set. With one last look at the scene unfolding before him, Keanu turned and began making his way back towards the veterinary clinic. The day's events had taken a dark, unexpected turn, but he felt a sense of closure, knowing that those responsible for Buddy's condition would finally face the justice they so richly deserved. As Keanu took a step in the direction of the veterinary clinic, his path unexpectedly crossed with that of the arrested bikers. The police were in the process of loading the last few into their vehicles when Keanu found himself face to face with a familiar and hated figure, the man who had kicked Buddy at the cafe. The biker's eyes widened in recognition, a mixture of anger and fear flashing across his face as he realized the man behind the sunglasses was the same person who had grabbed him at the cafe. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as they locked eyes. Keanu felt a surge of emotions, anger, disgust, but also a strange, unexpected sense of pity for someone whose life had led them to this miserable, pathetic point. He took a deep, centering breath before speaking. "You know," Keanu said, his voice low and controlled, "there's a line I recently read that seems appropriate right now. You don't mess with a man's dog." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This is real life, and actions have real consequences." The biker's face contorted with a helpless, impotent rage. "I hope that dog died," he spat, struggling against the officer holding him. Keanu's expression remained impassive, but his eyes hardened. "He didn't. And now, you'll have plenty of time to think about why hurting an innocent animal seemed like a good idea." With that, Keanu turned and walked away, never looking back, even as he heard the biker shouting a stream of obscenities behind him. The officers quickly silenced the man, pushing him roughly into the back of a police car. As Keanu continued his walk back to the veterinary clinic, he felt a tangible weight lift from his shoulders. The confrontation, brief as it was, had provided a much-needed sense of closure. He had faced the man responsible for Buddy's condition and had done so without lowering himself to the man's level of violence or vengeance. The streets that just a short time earlier had seen him rushing with an injured, dying Buddy in his arms, now witnessed his measured, calm return. The frantic tension that had driven him earlier had been replaced by a quiet, steely determination to see Buddy's recovery through to the very end. When Keanu arrived at the clinic, he found Dr. Harper waiting for him. Her face bore a tired but genuine smile, which Keanu took as a very good sign. "Mr. Reeves," she greeted him, "I'm happy to report that Buddy is stabilizing. The antidotes and supportive care are working well. We've managed to counteract most of the poison's effects." Keanu felt a wave of pure, unadulterated relief wash over him. That's wonderful news, Doctor. What's the next step?" Dr. Harper led him to Buddy's recovery area, as she explained. "We'll keep him under observation for the next 24 hours to monitor for any potential complications. He'll be on a regimen of medications, mainly anti-nausea drugs and liver protectants. We also have him on a special diet to support his recovery." As they reached Buddy's enclosure, Keanu saw the dog lying on a soft, comfortable bed, various monitors attached to him. Despite the tubes and wires, Buddy's tail gave a weak but definite wag when he saw Keanu, bringing a lump to Keanu's throat. "Hey, Buddy," Keanu said softly, kneeling down to be at eye level with the dog. "You're going to be okay. We got the bad guys." Dr. Harper smiled at the touching interaction. "If there are no complications, Buddy should be able to go home tomorrow. You'll need to continue his medication regimen and follow the special diet instructions, but his prognosis is good." Keanu nodded, already making mental notes. "I'll be here first thing in the morning," he promised. "My hotel is nearby, so I can be here quickly if anything changes." As they went over the final details of Buddy's care and the pickup arrangements for the next day, Keanu's attention shifted to a small TV in the clinic's reception area. The local news was reporting on the arrests at Iron and Ash, highlighting the multiple charges being brought against the biker gang members, with a particular and satisfying focus on animal cruelty. The report mentioned that detectives had found traces of dog fur on one of the men's boots. While official confirmation was still pending, there was a mention of tests being conducted to confirm the charge of animal cruelty. Keanu felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he watched the report. Justice was being served, and the neighborhood would be safer for it. He was also relieved to note that the news made no mention of his involvement. Sheriff Hank had kept his word about discretion. The report went on to mention that the owner of Iron and Ash was also being investigated, and the bar would be closed pending further inquiry. It seemed the day's events would lead to positive, lasting changes for the entire community. As Keanu prepared to leave the clinic, he felt a complex, swirling mix of emotions. The day had been a terrifying roller coaster of fear, anger, and now, finally, profound relief. But more than that, he felt a deep, unbreakable connection to Buddy that went far beyond their on-screen relationship. They had been through something real together, something that would undoubtedly translate into a more authentic, more powerful performance when they finally returned to the set. With a final, gentle pat for Buddy and a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Harper and her dedicated team, Keanu stepped out into the cool, early evening air. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, returning to the set, adjusting schedules, and ensuring Buddy's continued recovery. But for now, he was content in the knowledge that they had overcome a significant and terrifying hurdle together. The walk back to his hotel gave Keanu more time to reflect on the day's incredible events. The bustling streets of Brooklyn Heights seemed different now, as if the resolution of the conflict at Iron and Ash had somehow changed the very atmosphere of the neighborhood. As he walked, Keanu found his thoughts drifting again to Buddy and the unexpected, powerful bond that had formed between them. What had started as a simple walk to help him get into character had turned into a life-or-death struggle that had tested not just his acting skills, but his real-life courage and determination. Keanu couldn't help but think about how this shared, traumatic experience would impact their on-screen chemistry. The ordeal had created a connection that went far beyond the words on a script, a genuine unspoken trust and affection that would undoubtedly translate into more authentic, more moving performances. As he neared his hotel, Keanu's phone rang. The screen displayed the name of the movie's producer. Taking a deep breath, Keanu answered the call. "Keanu," the producer's voice came through, a mixture of concern and frustration evident in his tone. "How's Buddy doing?" Keanu gave a concise, calm summary of Buddy's condition and prognosis, emphasizing the positive outlook for his recovery. As he spoke, he could almost hear the gears turning in the producer's head, calculating the impact on their tight shooting schedule. "This is going to set us back," the producer said with a heavy sigh. "We'll need to adjust the shooting sequence. Maybe move some of your scenes without Buddy to the front of the schedule." "I understand," Keanu replied. "But Buddy's health has to come first. We can't rush his recovery." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when the producer spoke again, his voice had softened. "You're right, of course. We'll make it work. The vet said he should be ready to return in a few days." "That's the hope," Keanu confirmed. "I'll be picking him up tomorrow, and we'll follow the vet's instructions for his care and recovery to the letter." They discussed the logistics for a few more minutes, working out a tentative plan to reshoot the scenes that had been scheduled for that afternoon and the following day. The producer's willingness to prioritize Buddy's well-being over the immediate needs of the shooting schedule was a pleasant surprise to Keanu, demonstrating a positive and welcome shift in the industry's attitude toward its animal actors. As Keanu ended the call and stepped into the hotel lobby, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Sheriff Hank Morrison. "Operation successful. All suspects in custody. Evidence secured. Your involvement remains confidential." "Well done, Keanu." A small, satisfied smile played on Keanu's lips as he read the message. The sheriff's efficient handling of the situation and his discretion in keeping Keanu's involvement under wraps was exactly why he had turned to Hank for help. It was reassuring to know that the threat to Buddy and to the neighborhood had been neutralized without compromising Keanu's privacy or the film's production. The adventure might have come to an end, but Keanu knew that his journey with Buddy was far from over. Tomorrow would bring a new day, new scenes to shoot, and a deepened, unbreakable connection with his four-legged co-star. As sleep finally claimed him, Keanu's face bore a small, contented smile, a reflection of the deep satisfaction that comes from facing adversity head-on and emerging stronger and more resilient on the other side.